One eternity later.
Women in media. I know. What a can of worms of a topic to try and grapple with one video. Still, difficult isn't synonymous with irrelevant. We persevere with the hard tasks because it's the right thing to do for everybody, something women practice every single day. Give it up for their conditioned obligations, folks. Also, just a tiny disclaimer. This is a school project as well as a passion project. To approach with the guarantee that I poured my best efforts into it and my procrastinating abilities. Please give me an A. Representation is probably one of the hottest and most influential methods to spread impact on a global scale. And sadly, often enough, women's stories and overall perception of the concept is traditionally told through the lens of all sources but those of women themselves. The point is not to exclude one for the other, but to point out the inherent discrepancies, usually in dynamics of inferior and superior roles, that have plagued the woman figure in media. How that is harmful, how it plays out in deeper roots, what's a good and bad example, and what can be done about it. Media is a digital archive of every period piece of our social human behavior. It's a powerful, dangerous, but ultimately necessary tool for representation, especially to implement strong changes within a society. That's the evolution of communication. It is important that something as crucial as the existence and experience of a woman be portrayed in the media. Media bears the legacy of contact and bonding, and it is used today in many forms to keep said legacy alive. It is crucial that when something as important and intricate as the existence of women is portrayed in the media, it be done well. Because in the media, you gotta make sure you do no harm first and then impact positively. So taking into consideration that the media will shape the future generation's perceptions and expectations on an entire gender, let's delve into some interesting archetypes and cinematic niche referred to as tropes of women and girls and see how they might have shaped your idea of them. Implicit bias is a pain, ain't it? Take 1. Tropes. Join us. The theme is comforting, not challenging. The strong girl is a classic band-aid solution that creators use to distract disgruntled audiences. They attempt to show a female character that is seemingly empowered. Female lead saves the day, kicks some serious butt, and, above all, looks hot while doing it. What's harmful about this trope is that it is always a representation of a one-dimensional female character. It can be interesting, but they only embody the characteristics modeled after dudes, while also making them hairless and stripped from all imperfections. It not only sets unrealistic ideas into the audience's head, especially the young ones, but also reaffirms the idea that a strong, empowered female character can only seem badass and empowering when they embody the kind of qualities like combat or skill sets exclusively. Compassionate care, empathetic approaches, and diffusing crises are all excellent qualities that these characters can embody. But without some butt-kicking action, they all fall short and flat. An example is Harley Quinn, loonified villain that likes to blow things up to assert dominance and is hot. A good example of a fleshed-out character that displays strength in the traditional lens but also shows more depth and multifaceted parts is Katniss Everdeen, a brave and compassionate sister first, a tortured warrior second. Seriously, this girl was able to subvert expectations of a typical strong female character by leaning into the ruse of her fake camera persona and winning a war because she was brave enough to steer into the skid, not just because she could rush windpipes with arrows. Also hot. And Buffy the Vampire Slayer, who, while enjoying the casual nightlife of stabbing vampires and triumphing over forces of darkness, she also appreciated and even took pride in wanting to do other things with her character, like wanting to be a cheerleader, having classic teen fun, and not vilifying traditional feminine stuff to reassert her toughness. Who knew that to reassert toughness, you don't have to resent its opposing qualities? Other examples include the 2018 version of She-Ra and the Princesses of Power, with a wonderful female character who is fearless and beloved and one of the most popular canonically queer female characters of this era. And it elevates the trope as traditional strong women in film are usually close or in tandem with the male character's strength, but never overpowering them because producers and egos. But She-Ra's character shows on holding back, never, as her arc is based on her improving and her growth doesn't hinge on impressing a male character. Steven Universe characters like Garnet and Connie are other extensions to the healthy evolution of the trope. Regrettably, there are tons of unsung heroes who represent the strong girl archetype but get swept under the rug due to them seeming innocent, meek, and delicate, despite their powerful character depth revelation one-liners.
I fear neither death nor pain.
What do you fear, my lady?
A cage.
The difference between shallow representation we've definitely seen before and the good stuff is that these characters stood out for their valor as people and not just their butt-kicking abilities.
And trust me, it is worth it.
The reason we like TV and media isn't because we want to comfort the privileged, but because we want to challenge our own limits, the true purpose of the strong girl.
I volunteer as tribute.
The cool girl, on the other hand, plays a bit more of a male gratification role in media because what she is, essentially, is a chill homie of a dude that strokes the ego of the male protagonist like a cat's back, and also looks like a Victoria's Secret model. The male fantasy come to life on screen. Gillian Flynn's brilliant novel Gone Girl touches upon this very trope with a very self-aware monologue by the main character, Amy Dune, stating, and I quote, "Being the cool girl means I am a hot, brilliant, funny woman who adores football, poker, dirty jokes, and burping, who plays video games, drinks cheap beer, loves threesomes, the world's biggest culinary gangbang while somehow maintaining a size 2, because cool girls are above all hot. Hot and understanding. Cool girls never get angry. They only smile in a chagrined, loving manner and let their men do whatever they want. Go ahead, shit on me. I don't mind. I'm the cool girl." Men actually think this girl exists. Maybe they're fooled because so many women are willing to pretend to be this girl. For a long time, cool girl offended me. I used to see men, friends, coworkers, strangers, giddy over these awful pretender women. And I wanted to sit these men down and calmly say, "You are not dating a woman. You are dating a woman who has watched way too many movies written by socially awkward men who would like to believe that this kind of woman exists and might kiss them. The bitch doesn't really love chili dogs that much. No one loves chili dogs that much. And the cool girls are even more pathetic. They're not even pretending to be the woman they want to be. They're pretending to be the woman a man wants them to be." This passage brilliantly encapsulates the purpose of depicting a cool girl on TV. It is to please male audiences that have labeled women as these mythological, unattainable creatures and reined in a grocery list of preferences that mimics a man, but does not upstage or oppose his existence, as passive as it may be. When women see these depictions, it is a reminder that it is not them that are supposed to identify with women, but their male partners. These not only put up impossible and undesirable standards to younger girl viewers, but diminishes their subjective experiences as women and their social disadvantages. And the only antidote is to morph into a man with a pretty face. That's right, I called myself pretty, as it's best summed up in the cool girl monologue of Gone Girl. I like strong women. If he says that to you, he will at some point someone else. Because I like strong women is code for I hate strong women. Let's hope that one day the entertainment industry will tire of the trope and instead showcase female characters unapologetically being their authentic selves, unshackled from male-dominated industry's projected fantasies and desires. The mean girl is one of the most popular and misrepresented forms of all of them, dare I say. These vindictive, stunning, revenge-obsessed strategists are cast in a very media-biased light, somehow setting the precedent that all glamorous girls that are smart, fashionably apt, and charismatic will automatically be inherently evil. The heartbreaking thing about the mean girl is that they're hyper-aware with how the world functions socially, usually by observing and modeling the behavior they see from parents, witnessing social class struggles, or understanding that in the status quo, the privileged come on top and survive so they play the role.
You're an awful person. Maybe, but I'm rich and I'm pretty, so it doesn't really matter.
This type is so smart that she's able to understand how the world around her works and uses it to her advantage. Her downfall, however, is that she fails to learn the lesson the protagonist tries to teach her, and instead is always consumed by her hatred towards the world, instead of salvaged by her understanding on how to maneuver around it. Pain is a source their external attitude is inspired from.
Some people have a bad day. I've had a bad life. Threats only work on someone who has something to lose. But me? I've already lost it all.
Their fighting techniques are usually subtle, non-confrontational remarks that leave a breadcrumb trail of tactical moves that make them seem evil. But rarely is a mean girl showcased in media as a resource or what they can use in their cunning wits to aid in making the world a better place for the non-privileged, the way their counterparts, that is, brooding and mean male characters, are constantly shown doing so time and time again and having it framed as an endearing quality.
There's a different vocabulary for men and women in the music industry, right?
Give me an example.
Okay, a man does something, it's strategic. A woman does the same thing, it's calculated. A man is allowed to react, a woman can only overreact.
The queen has spoken. After all,
no one likes a mad woman. You made her like that.
one of the most celebrated and best received types of female characters are usually the smart girl, which I vehemently enjoy. Though they're sometimes shown to be lifted by putting down other kinds of girls. Sometimes shown that they're snarky with an inferiority complex, hating femininity until they have access to reaching it and stuff like that. But more often than not, she's just a sharp-tongued, quick-witted woman who is not afraid to stand up for what she believes in. They make the world a better place by making change happen regardless of the public perception that they receive. Because to them, the important part is putting the information out there, not how the information can be translated to their own physical lens of look, which is something that media often does push upon us. Excellent examples include Claire, the spunky nurse turned surgeon after adapting to a time travel scenario where she not only survived, but thrived thanks to her skills and brilliant mind. Dana Scully from The X-Files, a capable and perceptively intelligent agent who plays the realist to Mulder's potentially destructive dreamer. Malala Yousafzai, a precocious and brightly empathetic mind who risked her life to advocate for educating girls. Sheska, who didn't have to put others down to feel big, and instead used her passion of reading to fuel her life with opportunities to change her harsh circumstances. Paris Geller from Gilmore Girls, who despite her unusual and overbearing nature, valued knowledge and utilizing it. Lisa Simpson, who used her brains to stand up for what's right, no matter the amount of ridicule she received. Alex from Modern Family, who was a genius that was sadly given the boot time and time again for that quality by both the characters and even the creators themselves. Hermione Granger, who will correct incorrect people, no matter what opinion her intellectual inferiors form of her.
It's Leviosa, not Leviosa.
Bless the trend of a trope that showcases wit as a tool, not a turnoff. One of my favorites, the weird girl. This one's a fun one because they're never one thing, and they're a great reflection of how mass perception projected onto an impressionable woman can manifest into them steering into the skid and acting unorthodoxly. The positive thing is that usually this kind of girl is shown to embrace the qualities that make her unique, but only when she's endearing and subservient to the protagonist in making them seem down to earth, level-headed, and all the proper things that the weird girl is not. It's an umbrella term for any non-typical girl. In entertainment media's case, the typical girl being the most one-dimensional, basic, heck, monochrome, and lazily feminine female character. And that is sad.
They're thrown in for comedic effect, a complication narrative tool, or sometimes a cautionary tale. These days, this weirdness has been converted to symbolize embracing what makes you unique, as opposed to being excluded.
But it is always at the incentive to make the main character look good and at the cost of casting a shadow on weird girls, to seem like the sour thumb left out. Here's a cold hard truth. Women are diverse, multifaceted beings that go through phases, changes, and fads. They can like a lot of things at once or one thing a lot. If they're shown to be more three-dimensional than recycled sitcom cardboard cutout women, it is not because they're weird, it's because they're realistic. We just don't get to be expressed in a larger spectrum. If they're mentally ill or neurodivergent but also big-hearted dreamers, it is not just a quirk. If they like reading or are super hard workers because their social class has pitted them in a systematic warfare with success. If they're poets with a lot of emotional scars but also chock full of resilience and empathetic strength. If they go against the grain to express what they believe they were born to be. And if they're eccentric and boldly proud of who they fought to become, then it is something that should be used to demonstrate and encourage in girls and women that they can be all those things, that all those characteristics already make them women, and that there doesn't have to be one formula to be a proper woman, and that rejecting ingredients in that formula makes you not like other girls. Variety should be celebrated, not boxed into constructs.
Whew, that was some empowering stuff.
Take 2. Rivaling points.
Now, I want to touch up upon some topics I think are pretty important. So let's back up a little and take a look at the adversaries of the claims I womanly stake, shall we? 1. Objectification versus sexual liberation. Wow.
One of the most damaging things that media has presented to history is a method to degrade people, especially women, into the status of a mere object, dehumanizing their subjective human experience and context to instead serve a soundbite-long purpose to viewers. The common way this is done is by vilifying promiscuity and sexual expression, simultaneously contributing to rape culture by asserting that women being in tune and overt with their sexuality is an inherently shameful thing. This has started to become subverted as now women are taking back the power over asserting agency over their own sexuality. Dressing according to preference, sexual desire, and pursuit along with removing the shameful factors how many creators and media personalities channel sexual liberation. Actress Megan Fox herself proves to be a self-known sex symbol in Hollywood and is not only acutely aware but uses it as a way to spread the message that it doesn't have to be a bad thing as long as people don't render it as the only thing that defines your being. Leaning into the stereotype as a way to regain agency over the perception of women and sex. That is the key difference between objectification and sexual liberation. One condenses a woman's character to a single purpose, the other adds and expands on their being, an experience with the freedom to be more than just one thing. 2. Equity versus disparity. Equity is defined as the revised update to equality, the idea that not only should both sides be equal, but the discrepancies in privilege should be factored into the equation. A great example is Taylor Swift's The Man. To quote the song, "What it's like to brag about raking in dollars and getting bitches and models. And it's all good if you're bad and it's okay if you're mad. If I was out flashing my dollars, I'd be a bitch, not a baller. They pay me out to be bad, so it's okay that I'm mad." It goes to show that inherent stereotypes and prejudices are so deeply embedded within our subconscious and culture navigation that it is impossible to level the playing field by just having everybody start from the same line. There needs to be intersectionality as well. Women of color are even more disparaged than white women. The origin of these media culture influences is rooted in old traditional roles of what should be, not what could be. If it weren't for bold, radical figures that challenged the status quo of their environments like Lady Gaga or Jamila Jamil, the stream of media would never shift into a more positive direction and come to a more supportive but still work in progress sort of conclusion that is today. To create inclusive, realistic content with accurate portrayal, things like equity and feminism are a non-negotiable must.
My mom said to me, "You know, sweetheart, one day you should settle down and marry a rich man." And I said, "Mom, I am a rich man."
Sorry, I don't make the rules, but I accept their weight in society and try to do my best on my side for others that don't have a smidgen of the privilege I've carried since birth. 3. Implicit bias and the demonization of femininity. If the source of representation isn't aware of some gaping stereotypes that plague the girl-woman figure in media, they will most likely fall prey to the tendency of having an implicit bias. Implicit biases are human. They are the unconscious profiles we maintain in our minds, sculpted out of previous exposures or examples. The bias of it is the fact that we tend to attribute these unconscious opinions completely and exclusively upon the subject while excusing context or the possibility of something that doesn't confirm that image. This very phenomenon is what can bring about demonizing femininity. Cinema has often done this by showcasing female characters as inherently unlikable and even downright irritating, conversely making the male lead seem more human and more down-to-earth compared to his temperamental and cunning counterpart. Having a representation like this be hammered into your media diet from a young age can form the implicit bias that women and girls are tricky and mysterious beings that are hard to decipher and often not worth doing so. Not only is this false, but it is harmful, and it takes a lot to undo this sort of damage in the implicit blueprint of media-led generations. Clickbait falsehoods are an example of how false information contorts public perception of women and girls. Such was the case of Jamila Jamil, who was added in the thumbnail of a video titled Worst Actresses of Hollywood, but never actually appeared in the video. But people already commented their distaste for her just at the mention of the possibility of her affiliation with said video. And don't even get me started on the clickbait falsehood that is a Twitter-formed faux persona associated with Taylor Swift.
Using female synonyms to offend and infer inferiority, weakness, sneakiness, inability, and malicious intent further reinforces the very ideas and conscious biases that we have from the creators before us. Not because of what you're subjected to, but because of who you are. That harms every member in society.
Oh, we don't want to do that.
4.
Gender and sexuality.
These particular fields of social constructs are one of the most condemned elements of the conversation of representation in media. It had been for a long time an unwritten rule in media to not only explicitly recognize gender identity as a subgroup of the social construct and not to mention sexuality as anything that should be condoned. Hence, so much heteronormative content that vilifies fluidity. Gender has always separated human behavior and expression across polarizing direction, and the spectrum that exists in the middle is never considered into the conversation. That is why androgynous expression in media such as an advertisement had made such a headline, suffered backlash, and ultimately won favor with marginalized communities. Toxic masculinity is the byproduct of trying to maintain the male pole with its rigid ideas for a more traditional time, and it seeps into culture today in the form of mansplaining, homophobia, condensed fashion trends, and product marketing with derogatory content, not to mention the way more physically, emotionally, and mentally harmful elements that it brings to the table. Representation for queer women is scarce due to these prejudices that encapsulate their existence, but with the coming years there's been a wave of actively representative cartoons, music, and other medias in solidarity with these communities. There has even been more representative content showcasing transgender women and women of color.
I know a man pretending to be a woman when I see one, and I see 3 right in front of me. This is not that kind of establishment.
Wait a minute. Girl.
God may have blessed you with Barbies, a backyard with a pony in it, a boyfriend named Jake, and an unwanted pregnancy that your father paid to terminate so you could go to college and major in being a basic bitch. None of these things make you a woman. Your uniform of ill-fitting J. Crew culottes, fake pearls, and 50-cent scrunchies cannot conceal the fact that you do not know who you are. I know our presence threatens you. We fought for our place at this table, and that has made us stronger than you will ever be. Now pick your jaw up off the floor and go back to your clam chowder and shallow conversations. My girlfriends and I aren't going anywhere.
Heck yeah, love wins, but so does the liberty to be your authentic self.
Y'all heard that?
5. Token representation in the Bechdel-Wallace test. The worst kind of representation is the kind that is done just to satisfy numbers and checklists, without directly impacting and trying towards the audience it targets. The symbolic effort to cover diversity requirements by adding marginalized minorities to the mix without actually giving them the limelight to show their multifaceted existence is referred to as tokenism. A way to truly test the substance and depth of the representation depicted for women and girls is through the Bechdel-Wallace test, developed by queer cartoonist Alison Bechdel, which she credits to Liz Wallace. Essentially, the test asks 3 questions. 1. Does the show have more than one female character? 2. Do these female characters ever interact with each other? And 3. If they do interact, do they speak about anything other than their male love interests? The point of the test is simple. It calls out a lot of seemingly representative media sources on what a low and unrealistic number of female characters they have, how one-dimensional they tend to be, as they only represent stereotypical female characteristics, such as a desire for romance and their purpose in the story serving only that one goal, and how it does not leave room to explore the depth of them as individuals, but rather as add-on accessories to elevate the development of the main male character. I know it's a brutal test. I'm sad to admit that a ton of my favorite shows and books are guilty of underrepresentation, but hey, we're growing. Women are often corralled into the romance genre or interest exclusively because it has become the only common denominator people associate with them.
The truth is, girls and women can enjoy romance. I do. That's the point. The point is to enjoy whatever you want and all of it, and not be subjected to that one tiny little thing. Not have it be the only quality that defines all of us collectively.
And the finale. Take 3, my take.
Look, I fancy myself the title of a budding aspirational artist and writer and creator. And with that title, I find fuel and inspiration so that I myself can actually implement the changes that I myself want to see in everybody's media diet. And I absolutely plan to do so between me publishing my novel next year, good luck with that, future Dora, refreshing my personal blog, doing videos like these. So I've got ideas on how I'm gonna approach this thing. I know how I'm gonna implement the change that I want to see in the world, but change doesn't only come from our actions and what we do with ourselves, but also what we're willing to learn, form, and how intently we listen to find the true information and not just the convenient information. We gotta filter our personal media diet sometime soon, I hope, and sprinkle it with some legitimacy and incentive to improve life, not make it more unbearable. I feel and actively pursue knowledge in this topic because, as a young, aspiring woman with potential and ambition, I believe it shouldn't be counted as a privilege to dream and have the resources to make it a reality. I've been fortunate to live in a familial environment that helped me thrive, empowered me, and offered me so many resources. In mediums like TV and books and music, where I've gotten phenomenal representation and some false, very false ones. False notions about what it means to be a woman. I want to show how powerful media is in both amplifying and removing our voices based on how we choose to wield it. I'm working on doing my part for promoting better representation, hopefully, because everybody can learn from a woman, be that girls, boys, and every gender in between.
Maybe, just maybe, the future will be a tiny bit brighter and warmer for our oncoming replacements. Thanks for watching. And if you want to find out whether I got an A on this assignment or not, check out my social media in the description below. Stay tuned, you beautiful beings. Ciao!